The Senate Standing Committee on Education. Honored to have everyone here today in a delayed time frame given the circumstances of the weather, but thank you all for being here and being present. I do call this meeting to order. Meeting procedures, we can be present in the room or also on Zoom for those that are participating. If you're from remotely from your homes or from your annex office, please do so when taking roll. For members that are participating remotely, please make sure your microphones are muted until you're asked to speak. And after responding to the roll call, please return your microphone to the mute position. If you have a question or comment during the meeting, please indicate that in the meeting chat function. Chris, if you would, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll, Senator Givens, Senator Harper Angel,
Present remotely off campus.
Senator Higdon, Senator Kerr, Senator Meredith, Senator Neal, Senator Southworth, Senator Stivers, Senator Thomas, Senator West,
Present in the room.
Senator Wilson, Chairman Weiss.
Present. And we do have some members that are coming in. I see Senator Danny Carroll is making his way in as well. So we do have a quorum. Members, if you would, please put your phones on vibrate or silence as we conduct the meeting. The first bill for consideration is Senate Bill 115, an act relating to early literacy education, making appropriation therefore. The sponsor is Senator Steve West, and joining him at the table is Representative Tipton. Gentlemen, welcome. Please introduce yourselves for the record.
Senator West.
Representative Tipton, House District 53.
Thank you both so much. I know we have some guests on the line and available remotely, but Senator West, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the opportunity to present Senate Bill 115 today. With us, we have a dream team of education professionals. We've got Commissioner Glass, we've got Mickey Ray with KDE, we've got Amanda Ellis with CPE, and Dr. Aaron Thompson, head of CPE, Representative Tipton, Joe Burks. We have Chuck Truesdale and his cat, and they're all with us today to help us with this bill. This is a very important bill. I'm going to be like a machine gun right now and go through some key points. We only have 20 minutes, so I'm just going to hit some bullets in this part of my presentation.
Senator West, sorry to interrupt. We do have a committee sub. Can we move for the adoption on that? For your
Yes,
discussion?
I move for adoption of the sub.
I
would ask for adoption of the sub.
We have a motion for the committee sub on Senate Bill 115. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor of accepting the committee sub, please do so by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the genesis of this bill was an SREB conference that I attended along with Representative Tipton and many people on this committee. And we listened to really good presentations on early literacy and the effects of focusing our efforts on early literacy in grades 1 through 3. And so that's what this bill does. We came back from that SREB conference, and first thing we want to do is find out what we are currently doing. So we saw that we had the Read to Achieve program. The Read to Achieve program is a great program, really good professionals doing great work, but we felt that the problem with Read to Achieve was there wasn't enough of those teachers, and it wasn't across the state. And so we've been working on this initiative together for about 3 years. A lot of what, along with KDE and CPE and others, and it's important to point out we also worked closely with the Pritchard Committee over the interim. Representative Tipton and myself did as well. A lot of what is in here comes from a plan that has been implemented in Mississippi. They've done this, a plan similar to this. It's been in practice for about 7 years with tremendous results. And I'm just going to skip down through here to save time, but really the main reason for this is out of Kentucky's 693 elementary schools, 139 are considered novice. Of those schools, only 47 receive RTA grants. So 92 of the lowest performing schools that need the help the most cannot receive that help. They receive zero support in this area of early literacy and intervention. It's important to point out that interventions in Kentucky are mandated. Under KRS, we mandate as a public policy that if a child is behind in reading, needs reading help, that these interventions are mandated by the state through statute. So our goal, we're reaching about 10,000 kids. The goal of this initiative is to reach about 200,000 kids in our K through 3 area. And just really quickly, around 52% of our kids fall into the proficient or distinguished categories. Those are 2019 statistics. So I'm very scared to see what, once we come out with the 2020 numbers, I'm pretty sure that'll be a much lower number. It's also important to point out, this may not be known to the RTA community or others, but through budget process, I have personally requested an additional $1.5 million to flow into this area in the calendar year. So over the biennium, eventually that would be a $3 million increase specifically for this area. So I think we need to put our money where our mouth is and put money into this area. I've spoken too long. I know we're short on time. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Senator West. Chairman Wise, members of the committee, it's good to be before you today. This is an issue that I'm going to be quite frank, I'm very passionate about. About 2.5, 3 years ago, I'd been here in the General Assembly for a while. I'd been involved in some education meetings, some education issues, and I asked myself this question: what can we do to raise the bar? What can we do to move the needle in a positive direction for the benefit of our children in Kentucky? And we've got all kinds of programs out here, but the one this issue came to me, that is the ability of our children to read proficiently at grade level by the time they enter 4th grade. We understand that from 4th grade on, a lot of the material is comprehension. A child has to be able to comprehend that material. There is a correlation between this proficiency at the 4th grade level, high school graduation. There's even a correlation to an increase in incarceration. And these are all disturbing numbers. So I reached out to president of SREB at that time, former commissioner Stephen Pruitt here in Kentucky, put me in contact with his early literacy policy analyst. In the summer of 2019, SREB actually hosted a roundtable at KDE. We had a lot of good professionals in. We came back here in 20, Senator West and I, with legislation. We did have an information-only meeting in the COVID-shortened session last year. Over this summer, we have worked with the Pritchard Committee. They hosted a task force. We brought in university professors in higher education, in education. We brought in elementary principals. We had experts from all over, just trying to identify what can we do. And this is a multi-tiered approach. One of the most important parts of this is to improve Tier 1 instruction in our early education teachers in early literacy, because that is such an important area. Part of this legislation deals with improvement at the higher education level in the pre-service training, but also with the coaching model and the professional development part of it. So that's kind of, I know you all may have questions. Mr. Chairman, the House does gavel in at 2 o'clock, so I may have to slip out of here in a minute, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come forward and testify this morning.
Completely agree. We have 5 bills on the agenda. I want to ask Commissioner Glass, I know you are on a tight schedule. I know we have many on the call, but I do think you may have some comments about this. So, Commissioner, I'm going to let you speak.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this legislation, and I'll work to be brief. First, I'd like to thank Senator West and Representative Tipton and your staff for working with KDE in the development of this legislation. The engagement that Senator West and Representative Tipton did with our shareholders across the state is really an exemplary way to go about gathering input in the construction of legislation, and I want to commend them for that. Early literacy is a foundational element for education in our Commonwealth and something that we all have an interest in supporting. And I want to acknowledge the existing Read to Achieve program, that it's been popular and it's had success in some communities. And if we want to achieve our goal of lifting literacy results across Kentucky, then we're going to need a different model going forward. While there are certainly positives with this existing program, and any shift to an existing program has its challenges, we shouldn't expect our results to change if we're also unwilling to change. As has been previously mentioned, our reading scores have been stagnant for some time, leading us to believe that we've wrung about all we can out of the current configuration, and we need to adapt if we want a different outcome. And this is especially true with our most at-risk and vulnerable schools and student populations. This bill aligns with the recommendations of the Pritchard Task Force that met over this past year that brought together a blue ribbon group to support the creation of the legislation. It also reaches more children, engages more families, and ensures greater equity than our present system. It includes regular communication with parents of students in grades K-3, identifies as needing accelerated progress in reading. It includes a read at home resources and regular written quarterly progress reports containing the information in a student's reading improvement plan. It includes statewide professional development, learning supports to all of our K-3 reading teachers with proven instructional and intervention strategies. It includes state literacy coaches to provide job-embedded training and supports for our teachers, schools, and districts. And finally, it aligns with our education preparation programs at the college level with what the best available science on reading instruction indicates our teachers need to prepare students to read at a proficient level by grade 3. We support SB 115 because it reconfigures the reading instruction model in the Commonwealth to give our teachers the support they need to help their students, and it's benchmarks against systems we have seen be successful in other states. I'm so grateful for your time and attention on this issue. Mickey Ray from the department is here available to answer any questions you may have. Thanks so much for the chance to be with you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's get right to questions. First is Senator Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to commend you, gentlemen, for this bill. I know that both of you have worked equally hard on this, and I've been a member of SREB for going on 11 years. It's one of the best organizations, nonpartisan, non-political, and they have a great leader at the head right now. And so I just want to commend you on this. I know that originally I was born in Mississippi and I still have relatives that live there. And so when you used to say, thank God for Mississippi because they were last, you can't say that anymore because of things that they've done that we're looking at implementing here. What started everyone standing up and taking notice and saying, what are they doing? And certainly I really welcome this to us here in Kentucky. And thank you guys for your hard work on this and appreciate you bringing it. And I strongly support it.
Thanks, Senator Wilson. Senator Thomas.
Chairman Wise, could I
Please
interject here to respond? You're spot on, Senator Wilson. In Mississippi, they implemented this, I believe, in 15. Between 2017 and 2019, they were the first in the United States in gains at the fourth grade reading level. So, thank you.
Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, I have two questions like that, Senator West. One is an easy one, one is a hard one.
Please proceed.
Thank you. The easy one first, Senator West. As you know, I read Senate Bill 115 right after we finished the first half of the first part of the session because I tried to call your office.
Yes.
But we couldn't connect. So I'm familiar with the original bill. Tell me what differences are in the Senate Committee substitute and the original Senate Bill 115.
I'll jump in, and Representative Tipton, or this is where Amanda Ellis can give the exact position of those changes probably. But there were two sets of changes. We had, and honestly, part of this was a mistake. So we had requested the bill from committee to be filed on the floor. There was some confusion, and they had sent, I meant for them to send the committee substitute from the interim session, but they sent the bill previous to that, and so that's what was filed. So we made changes to conform to the committee substitute that we had discussed in the interim, so that was there. And then we had put in place some changes that developed through the Pritchard Committee recommendations. Amanda Ellis can probably tell you exactly what those are. And then the second set of changes were a couple of technical changes. Education Committee felt there were a couple areas where the language would flow better. We agreed and put those changes in. That was last week. Those were just two small areas. But if Amanda, if you could just key in on that for us, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you are spot on. The only other additional recommendation from the Pritchard Committee was the really the accountability piece, as far as asking for reports to be shared with the interim joint on the implementation of the professional learning, and with the help of the literacy coaches, to ensure that there was implementation happening and that there was impact. That's also was that was a recommendation from Pritchard, and they really liked that from Mississippi, because there was an accountability piece to be able to report to the General Assembly on the investment of your funds and your time, and putting that law into place, that there was actual data to see if it's having an impact. The other piece of report around that was around teacher preparation. And the success of the teachers, and with the change in the assessment for reading, being able to report on the changes that the pre-service or the education preparation programs had made, and the success of that. So again, it was just two pieces of reporting that were added in, because many of the same recommendations that came from the task force full of practitioners actually were already in the bill, that we were able to point out in the former bill for them to support. Mickey, is there any additional pieces that I'm missing out on? I think those were the two main pieces that were added.
No, you're correct, Dr. Ellis. So Section 4, there's a new Section 4 that amends KRS 158.840, and that is the interim joint report and the external evaluator. The only other piece, there's also now required reporting with an external evaluator in Section 5 for the KDE to ensure that they are showing progress towards student outcomes as well.
Thank you all. Senator Thomas.
My second question, as I said, Senator West, is much harder. And let me begin by saying I've been thinking a lot about the great debate we had just a couple of days ago on Senate Bill 120. I thought that's one of the best, in my short 8 years here, that's one of the best debates we've ever had on the Senate floor, because we talked a lot about poverty. And I do think we don't give enough attention as a Senate body to dealing with poverty. We've got a lot of poverty here in this state. As President Stivers says, he comes from one of the poorest districts in the entire nation. Okay, so we've really got to get our hands around poverty and move Kentucky out of poverty. And as you know, I have said a lot that if we're serious about eliminating achievement gaps and about dealing with poverty in this state, and I'm going to continue to say that as long as I hold this office, is that we've got to start having early child education. I'm a big advocate for that. And I'm going to support your bill. Let me be clear. I'm going to support this bill. I like it. Okay. But what this bill does, it attracts problem readers in the first grade. And I've been to Read to Achieve Pro. I've told you, I go to at least one every year in Fayette County, and they do a tremendous job. But we're trying to correct reading problems in first grade rather than dealing with them at 4-year-olds. And as I've said many, many times, the achievement gap starts on the first day of kindergarten. And I can see the difference, Senator West, between those families who I'm exposed to, who send their children to early childhood education programs, and then those families I become exposed to who just don't have the resources to do so. And the difference in their children's vocabulary is like night and day. Okay, and so I'm going to support, again, the $3 million allocation appropriation you want to put to this program. We got to do that. But I think that ultimately you and Representative Tipton and the entire Senate body have to come to grips with the fact that we've got to find a way to allocate money to early child education. If we're serious about poverty, if we're serious about eliminating the achievement gap, we just have to do that as a state.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. I appreciate your support, and thank you, Representative Tipton. I appreciate your support. I think it was General said, you go to war with the army you have. So I agree with your early childhood concerns and thoughts. I think if we across the board implemented early childhood in Kentucky, I think the price tag on that is $200 million. So I'm attempting to use limited resources and put them in the place where we can get the most return on investment at this time. So I understand your concerns. I agree with many of your concerns. It starts early. But we have these kids, they're already there, they're already in school, and by law, we have a responsibility to intervene and to bring them up to at least novice, or at least, at least on level. So once again, I thank you for your support, and but this just deals with this segment of education, which you're talking about is early childhood. One of the next steps I feel is very important. If we can pass this and get it through, we hope to look at post-secondary as well, what role they can play in this space. So this is not an exhaustive bill, but I appreciate your support.
President Stivers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look around the committee and I think only Senator Higdon may have been here at the time, but I'm not even sure about that. Read to Achieve was introduced, I think, and passed after 2 or 3 attempts by then Senator Jack Westwood. My question, and if I'm not badly mistaken, I think he got the idea from SREB. How will this either supplant or dovetail into Read to Achieve? Because we're currently doing quite a bit in that area, and I'm not disagreeing with anything being said, because actually there's been studies that you can forecast by reading success at the 4th grade jail bed usage for adult populations. So and I'm going to say this about something Senator Thomas said. I don't disagree with the fact that you need early childhood education. We may disagree on when you need to start early childhood education. But back to my main question, how does this go into the Read to Achieve program, or does it basically obviate the need for?
It does. It affects it. And Amanda and Mickey can jump in after I'm done. Right now, under RTA grants, the way that works is if you apply for a grant, if you're a district and you apply and you get the grant, it's $48,000 to that school. That's what RTA is. So it's up to the school to provide the additional funding from some source to keep that RTA teacher employed. So if you're lucky enough to be one of the few districts that has an RTA teacher, you're in great shape, and you don't want to lose your RTA teacher. But really, where RTA is most needed, those districts they do not have the funds and resources available to have the RTA teachers there. What would happen is this would supplant the RTA program and move that money into the coaching model. So there would be coaches set up through KDE who would coach the entire group of elementary school teachers in that school. They would start with professional development, which is our schools are asking for new professional development, and then they would come alongside and coach all those teachers in person with one-on-one instruction with the kids. Now, the district, out of their own volition, they can keep those RTA teachers if they choose to. They would just have to pay them that $48,000. Now, most likely, this is my personal opinion, the RTA teachers are probably some of the best teachers in the school itself. So any good principal is probably not going to want to let go of the RTA teachers. Also, those RTA teachers are going to be perfect for coaches in this space. So we're not only we don't want to do away with the idea of RTA. We want to expand the idea of RTA, and just make sure that every kid in the Commonwealth has the opportunity for intervention.
Follow up.
Just a quick follow-up comment, just to give a little bit of a historical perspective. When Jack got this passed, it took him 2 or 3 sessions, because at that time, before you could get on SREB, you had to have the approval of the Senate or the Democrat governor to get on SREB. Second, because they didn't want Jack Westwood to get reelected and have this type of accomplishment, the House killed it every year until we virtually said we were going to shut down the session unless they did pass it.
Yeah. This is the 3rd session, so hopefully that's spot on for us.
Thank you. Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Stivers. I think I was in the House when Senator Westwood passed that. I was not. I didn't arrive till 2009. I got here as soon as I could. I'll never forget. Oh, Central West is, we've talked a lot about this bill, and it's a great bill, and it's much needed in Kentucky. I've been invited year after year and have visited many times to some of my local schools to observe the RTA program, Read to a Tree program, and the enthusiasm and quality of the teachers that are running that program is just incredible. And to see those young kids, a video of them when they first get them, and then to see them in person, how excited and proud of themselves that they are, that they can read. And I was one of those kids that couldn't read very well, and I wish it had been around when I was in grade school. But that said, one of my concerns is the RTA program itself, and those teachers, to make sure that they are, like you said, they're very important to this program being successful. So I just want to make sure that they're not forgotten in this bill, and that we integrate them, in the best way possible. And so that's my main concern. I know the program will work. I'm glad to hear that you've requested the money. So I just wanted to say that, and you can tell, Senator Stivers, hit right on what I was going to ask about, how RTA would fit in there. And so you can tell me again, a very, very short answer, that these current Read to Achieve teachers and current Read to Achieve programs will be integrated and won't be eliminated.
I agree with what you're saying 100%. I'm going to let Amanda Ellis chime in a little bit on this topic. She's specifically a technical expert on this area. They will have the ability to have a job if they want one. If there'll be I'm sure there'll be some type of space for them somewhere. But Amanda, if you could just speak to that. We've talked a lot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree. The thing is in the law, as you all know, that's already been referenced, is the Read to Intervent, or RTI. So the response to intervention was in law anyway, because of the General Assembly putting that as a priority of interventions being absolutely necessary. And everything you're saying is correct. What we've seen, as Dr. Glass spoke about, is that we have not maintained as well in direct Tier 1 instruction and that ongoing professional learning. And so interventionists are absolutely necessary. And for those of you who have experienced, whether they are RTA funded or they are locally funded, interventionists are simply amazing at what they do and are true experts in literacy. So to Senator West's point, I have no doubt that the school would retain their interventionist, especially those who are highly effective, and they really help those who need additional support in addition to the Tier 1 instruction. But we definitely don't want the interventionist to be seen as the miracle worker. It really takes both that daily instruction and then as needed the interventions. And so the interventionist would definitely be of great value to the schools, as many of you all have referenced, but also really because of their expertise, prime candidates for the coaches. And I know one of the concerns from the RTA folks that provided feedback was a concern that these coaches would come in and replace the folks. And really, that would be crazy not to use excellence within those communities, those school communities. Our best assets are already in this state. It's just how we use them to be more equitable, to really reach out and build capacity of all of our teachers. I think, RTA was in my school when I was the elementary principal, and we had excellent results, but it serves such a small population of students, it's hard to see the impact statewide. And so to be able to expand this and really share the wealth and build the capacity of teachers through the expertise of our local interventionists, who may already, quite honestly, some serve as coaches in their building, will only enhance it for other students. And, our students just can't wait. And it really, we're even targeting kindergarten through third grade. So to your point, that was made about early childhood. We're going as far down as we can, and definitely early childhood absolutely makes a difference. But if we have them prepared well in early childhood or preschool, and we don't have them well prepared in our primary program and don't maintain and have that consistent high quality instruction, it is still going to be a barrier for so many of our students, especially impacting low income and minority students, which we desperately need to improve. And this was all pre-COVID. And so that's absolutely the goal. I think there is more than enough need for the interventionists, especially as we come out of a pandemic. We don't even know how great that need will be at all levels. And so these interventionists are key. They're highly valuable, and their expertise is absolutely necessary. So I don't see this as cutting that out. It was never cut out. Actually, we enhanced the language around the intervention to make sure that it really included parent support early on. And it was clear on the use of screeners and what the expectation was, because the language before was good, but it was a little vague. So based on the feedback that we had received from the task force and even from the round group that we had in 2019, that language was changed because of current practitioners. So I hope that answers the question, but they're absolutely valued and necessary.
To sum up, Senator Higdon, I think if this bill finally passes, I think we will need more interventionists and not less. So,
thanks, Senator. Members, we have 3 members still up for the question. Senator Southworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions, if I could blow through them here quickly. First of all, mentioned the results as far as, how these students, are we doing it just through the assessment, or are we doing it through the data from the General Assembly report, or how are we landing on what we've come to?
To clarify, are you talking about to find out if they need intervention or how it's performing?
On the back end, how it went.
Okay.
So far as we go.
So a lot of that is done in the existing tests, required tests. But Amanda and Mickey can tell you exactly, how this bill changes the current system.
Let me add something else. Mississippi was on my mind. So we heard, we know them as last. They're like 3rd in the nation, 7th in the nation, that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering, has the assessment changed since that program has changed, or is this the same old assessment they've always been doing, or that? She's nodding her head, so let her talk.
I can answer that for you. I
think she's ready.
And I'll answer really briefly. There's a couple of things. So they actually enhanced and raised the rigor of their state standards and made their state assessment more rigorous. But what they also did, when you speak to their commissioner, is that's why they also compared it to NAEP, because NAEP is the national exam that can be compared. So even what they were doing is they realized that even their state standards were lower than the expectation rigor of NAEP. So they raised their standards. So it actually increased rigor. The other thing that they did is they've had a couple of outside evaluations to actually go in and observe classroom observations. So it's not just summative data. That has been the outcome of significant improvements in reading. And actually it's impacted mathematics as well. But the other research pieces, and I'm happy to provide that for you all to see, is the qualitative piece and the observations of actually what's going on in the classroom with implementation and the impact of the professional learning and the coaching of how that's been supportive of building capacity of teachers. And they've even done lots of interviews with teachers on what's working, what they would like to see more of. And with that build of capacity, it's really changed the culture of the importance of literacy and how students are prepared all the way through, including pre-service. So there's different data points. So it's not just a summative test score. There's multiple data points. I'm happy to share that with Senator West or Chair Wise to share with the committee if that's helpful.
Yeah, and the goal was to get every kid on level by 3rd grade, while at the same time, keeping them moving towards proficiency. The ones that are already on level, keep moving them towards proficiency, while at the same time, not burdening the teachers in the schools with a lot of new testing requirements. We've tried to fit this within the existing test. So I hope that answers your question.
One follow-up.
Briefly.
In the interest of time, I'll cut out my other questions. The programming in Mississippi or elsewhere, and maybe what we're looking at here, are we looking at it, is it all going to be publicly funded, or are there other private outfits that are engaging in this space, such as like the Gates Foundation or others?
I know of no private, this is public. I know of no private intervention here. The only possible place where you could have private intervention is, we envision this, working with post-secondary. KDE becomes the repository of all these new methods in teaching reading, and they pass those along through professional development. Now, I'm sure they'll take advantage of private foundations and private teaching in that area, but other than that, there are no private funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to go through this quickly. Spent about a half hour this morning on the phone with Read to Achieve teacher, Miss Adina Lewis in Lone Oak. Did not expect her to be in support of this, but she was absolutely in support of it. But the only concern she had about the whole bill had to do with coaching and concerns about the relationship between a master's level teacher teaching a master's level teacher and the relationship issues with that, whether it would be received. So I have a question about that. She also described to me that the program that she went through Ohio University was a 2-year training program. How are we going to accomplish what we need to do in a shorter amount of time? And is there a certification process that can be achieved in a shorter course?
I'm going to let Amanda, you and I talked, Senator Carroll, this morning about that issue. I'm going to let Amanda answer that. But this, in all seriousness, this bill will not make the system perfect. You will still have controversy at the school level between teachers. Obviously, I think that's less of a problem when you have a master's educated coach teaching entry-level elementary age teachers. I think it's perfect there, but I can understand where she's coming from. Not saying there's not going to be issues, but Amanda, if you could describe where do we go from here once this is implemented? How do we streamline or make uniform that professional development and train these new coaches?
Yeah, so it's a great question. One of the things, as kind of going back to speaking about finding the resources within our own state and using our interventionists within the community, those who may be interested in coaching, is kind of the approach, honestly, that Mississippi took. A lot of their coaches are literacy interventionists or specialists, but what they do provide is intentional training and support for the coaches for adult learners. It's very different, to your point, Senator Carroll, about helping students versus helping other professionals, especially in different settings. So that is something that is built into the plan around the coaching. That was our initial plan, was that there is intentional training around that there has to be not just literacy expertise, but really an understanding of how to interact with adults, how to help teach and coach. That is a skill set that is taught. And so that's something that would be a part of their training. And hopefully that these are not people coming out from random places. These are people within that are interested in that role that may already have a credential in that. The professional learning would be a series. If we modeled it very similar to Mississippi, it would be a series of professional learning that hit on the foundational pieces of literacy. And so that is something that is ongoing. That is a hybrid approach. It's specifically after post-COVID, hopefully we'll have more flexibility. But with that, that would be offered at different levels of understanding as they go through the different training opportunities or learning opportunities, where that coach would be able to enhance the implementation piece. So they would absolutely have to be prepared. And to Senator West's point, it's not perfect by any means, but it is definitely on the job, embedded into what they do daily. So it's one thing to learn something new. It's another thing to implement into your daily routine and change up some of your things that you do. And so that's what that coach would help to enhance. I hope that's quick and to the point. I apologize if it was
Absolutely. And I've also had the opportunity to visit Read to Achieve programs. Totally impressed. This is a great bill. And from the early childhood education perspective that Senator Thomas spoke about, as the executive director of a center, My plan is to use my preschool partnership grant relationships.
Yes.
And when some of those teachers get this training, that's where I'm going to go to get some training for my teachers. So I think there are avenues there set up already for early childhood that we can take advantage of. Not near enough, don't get me wrong, but I'm excited about it. We focus on reading at our center, and I think this will give our teachers another tool to be successful. And when our kids get to kindergarten, they're going to be ready. And I'm excited. Thank you all for your work on this.
Thank you.
You have sold me on this.
Thanks, Senator Carroll. Senator Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm still confused by this Central West, and not speaking against the bill. I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but we have a program, RTA, which obviously is up here in terms of their accomplishments and reading proficiency for the students. But we have the rest of the state right here. Those are in the district. I struggle with, why aren't we trying to replicate this for the entire state? Is that just a funding issue?
Yep.
Then if we incorporate in this new program you're talking about, does this bring these folks down here to bring these people up here?
That is not, clearly not.
I know it's not. I'm just
we
trying
hope
to
not.
figure out.
We that is not the objective of this bill. To your initial point, it is about funding. There, to have, we're reaching about 10,000 kids with the current RTA program. We have 200,000 kids in that space. So all you got to do is some quick math. If you want to reach the entire state, just multiply our current funding by 20, I guess, and to get to that level. So we're attempting to be efficient, get a really good return on investment, and really, in essence, clone these RTA teachers. We're trying to clone what we're already having success with and spread it across the state, especially, I know Joe Burks is here, but Jefferson County Public School, it's amazing, and maybe Amanda can tell us exactly, they have very few RTA teachers in Jefferson County Public School, where they are most needed, where there are the largest achievement gaps. And so, although it's not perfect, it's an attempt to use our resources to their furthest extent.
I'm going to vote for the bill, but I would hope you and I can have some further conversation about this, because I've just got some uneasiness about it, and maybe
Sure.
you can enlighten me. But I'm just a big fan of the current RTA program, and they've done a wonderful job in my district, and just want to make sure that's not compromised. And so we'll talk, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Senator Meredith. We do have a motion on the bill. There's no further questions. Do we have a second on the bill? We have a second from Senator Carroll. All those in favor, after Chris calls the roll, please say aye.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon.
Explain my aye vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator West. I vote aye, but I do have some concerns. I want to know exactly how the RTA program, the existing program, I'd love to see us work out a way where they can remain, because they have done great work, and I think going forward, they could be a real role model for the rest of these teachers, and as we expand it across the state. So I'll be working with you on that to try to get that in place. Thank you.
Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Much like Senator Higdon, these folks have done a great job within my district, and I think they do be commended for that. But these are some of the poorest counties that we have in our state, and I just need some further dialogue with you. I want to see the process move along. We need to do this for our kids, and it's just encouraging that for the first time in a long time, everybody within our Senate recognizes this as a priority for us. But thank you.
Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I'm going to vote aye. I came into this hearing expecting to not vote that way. And I haven't even completely thoroughly digested every part of this bill, because it is quite lengthy, and I've been struggling trying to get my hands on exactly what's going on. But I want to share what Dr. Ellis just mentioned earlier, the NAEP scores. The NAEP scores Kentucky has always been a piece underneath every chart. We're always just under. And we can change our assessments, and what I heard Mississippi, change their assessment, red flag. You can alter your assessment anytime you want to make it look better than it is. But the NAEP score is kind of like that cornerstone you can compare to. So when I pull up my screen and I see Mississippi has almost the same style scores as we do under NAEP, constantly underneath all the time, except in 2019, for the first time, Mississippi has met or outperformed national averages. In what category? It was that 4th grade reading. They've actually met that NAEP score, which means they just made an achievement gap gain all the way up to national average. I'm not saying average is the best and amazing, but that is the average, and it's something we've not made yet in Kentucky. So I'm going to vote for this and hope that we can work on these details, but get toward that goal. Thank you.
Senator Stivers, Senator Thomas, Senator West,
Aye.
Senator Wilson, Chairman Wise. 9 to...
The measure does pass by a 9-0 vote. Senator West, congratulations. Thank you for your collaboration on this. Very well done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you all who contributed. Next bill on the agenda, I'm moving out of order, is Senate Bill 135, an act related to the Post-Secondary Education Performance Fund. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Givens. Senator Givens, welcome. I'll let you introduce yourself for the record and any guests that you may have, sir.
Chairman Wise, members of the committee, thank you for the chance to present Senate Bill 135 for your consideration. I'm pleased to be joined virtually by CPE President Aaron Thompson, who's going to speak briefly after I do. In addition, we have in the room with us LRC bill drafter Nick Peak, who's been very involved in conversations of making sure that we achieve the goal. Ride with me quickly through a journey. That journey starts back in 1998, and we're going to travel quickly up to present day and beyond. But in 1998, in foundational, landscape-changing post-secondary education legislation, Kentucky set a goal. CPE built on that goal and redefined it not so very long ago as 60 by 30. If we could have 60% of our post-secondary education credential and degree earners, if we could have 60% of them there by the year 2030, we'd be at the national average. The impact on education is well known. Corrections cost, healthcare cost, economic benefits. That 60 by 30 goal is the guiding light that I want you to leave this conversation with today. And performance-based funding has been one of the ways that's helped move us back toward achieving that goal. 2015, 2014, efforts were made to move us away from an old shares model of funding post-secondary education into a performance-driven model. Thankfully, in the regular session of 2016, some budget dollars were set aside to motivate that conversation. CPE convened the group, gathered the university presidents in one of the most fascinating conversations around policy change that I've had a chance to be involved in. And the work product was what was then passed as Senate Bill 153 in the regular session of 2017. Again, moving Kentucky to distributing our post-secondary education funding through a performance-driven model. A model built around things like enrollment, graduation rates, the missions of the universities, credit earnings, degree attainment, the sorts of things that change lives for Kentucky students and Kentucky families. Part of that legislation also required that in the summer of 2020, CPE reconvene that task force work group around performance funding to see if any adjustments need to be made. I'm excited to have in front of you the final work product of that task force, and I'm going to call it version 1.2. It's not version 2.0, it's version 1.2. We did slightly change the language in the statute, but you'll see we didn't change it drastically. Mr. Chairman, if we could, we do have in front of us also a committee sub, and if we could move to adopt that committee sub.
Thank you, Senator Givens. Do we have a motion on the sub? We have a motion for Senator Wilson. We have a second. Second, Senator West. All those in favor of adopting the sub, please do so by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
Chairman, the reason for the sub is the language at the very end. That's the only new language. We need an emergency title on this so that the sub is in law now prior to passage of the budget, because the way we allocate the funds in the 21-22 budgetary year is impacted by the changes we make in this language, and so we do need it to pass ahead of the budget. Now, specific to what it does change, we create what we call a funding floor. And one of the challenges we've had is in these economic times between the passage of the original performance funding and today, we haven't had sufficient monies to invest in post-secondary education. And the model has been built, as Senator West and I have often discussed, on, sadly enough, moving funds from one institution to another. This changes that. This creates a floor whereby we don't move funds from one institution into the performance pool and then distribute it out to everyone else. That floor, combined with the pool as created in the legislation, gives us the opportunity to put post-secondary education funds into solely a performance pool to be competed for by the institutions and then distributed among the institutions. Different approach than us doing the 2% stop loss, 1% stop loss sort of language we've been doing in the period between 2017 and 2019. I'm going to pause there, Mr. Chairman, because that's really the crux of the change. We're sending this money into a pool. I would like, if we could briefly, for Dr. Thompson to speak, and largely as my friend Aaron comes on, I'm going to challenge him to speak about the positive impacts that this legislation has had over time. President Thompson, always good to have you with us, sir.
Dr. Thompson, welcome. If you could introduce yourself for the record and please proceed.
Absolutely. Aaron Thompson, President of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. Thank you, Chair Wise and Chair Gibbons. Gibbons, it's important for me to say this. Senator Gibbons, along with Representative Tipton and Budget Director Hicks, we're a part of a team of all the presidents and myself that had a good debate about what it meant to have good education in Kentucky. When I took over this role a while back, we started focusing on how higher education needed to be that direct correlation with a good workforce and an excellent economic development system for Kentucky. And that's what this was all about. This was about how can we get more of our students being in a level of a high quality and enough quantity of education for Kentucky to do that. This performance funding model did exactly that. Version 1.0 focused on items like STEM achievement, focused on gap closing with our low income and students of color. It focused on degree and credential attainment. And I'm happy to say, since we've implemented that model, we needed about a 1.7% increase in that's a percentage point increase every year to get to that 60 by 30. And we've had like a 3.5% increase. So we are actually doubling the effect. Since that model's been implemented, we're up 16% overall in our credential and degree attainment. Our students of color, our underrepresented minority populations, are up 37%. If you combine our underrepresented minority populations with low income and had them as one group, we're up 24%. This is working. Do we have more to do? Absolutely. But a couple other points I want to make with this. This gives us an opportunity to have a bullet pulpit about how we implement what I consider to be best practice to make sure we don't leave anyone behind. I would have loved to have had some conversation on the last bill you talked about, because there's a lot of points that actually were left out that goes to that, because if you look at those gaps in each one of those transition spaces from early childhood all the way through post-secondary, you're going to see a lot of correlation. So the point that we're trying to make here, whatever students we get, we have to take them and do whatever we can to make sure that they are ready for a very innovative workforce to build our tax base. You can also say this, I hope, that if you look at those that are on unemployment, 90% are without a post-secondary credential. Over the last many years, mainly because of this performance funding model, I say boldly, that we've been able to put a lot more people to work that stayed employed that would have been unemployed with this 90% if we hadn't done that. So the presidents, myself, we agree that this is the route to go. I want to once again give appreciation to all of those, including you, Senator Gibbons, that talked about how we need to not just rob from Peter to pay Paul, but how can we in fact create a model whereby we can get the best, if you will, toward that 60 by 30.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. We do have a question from one of the members, Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, actually, my question is to Dr. Thompson. Senator Gibbons, I'm going to support the bill. So I'm going to support the bill. Dr. Thompson, my question is to you. You know, I'm in regular contact with the presidents of the state universities in my area, Dr. Capilouto, Dr. Capo. You said that even though we've made this significant increase in terms of achievement under performance funding, and I applaud that, you said there's more to be done. If you could just give me one or two bullet points as what you think more to be done means. Because
I think
higher
there's
education is very important to my community, very important.
We've had a bigger impact, Senator Thomas, and I think this is a very fair question. We've had a bigger impact on our underrepresented minority populations after we get them. We need to somehow get more involved in post-secondary education. That's one. Now,
Are you saying we need to get more African Americans and more minorities into college? Is that what you're saying?
I am. I think we need to get more of everybody into college. Our college going rate just fell to 50.5%.
Well, see, that's the kind of information. That's the kind of information I need to know. Okay, I got you. What's the second one?
Yeah. The second one, we haven't been able to move the low income at nearly the level that I think we should. And being a old Clay County boy here, that really concerns me because we are leaving too many people behind. And once again, it doesn't go to this performance funding model, but if you look at, we're down 19% overall FAFSA completion, over 20-something% if we look at low income and students of color. Very problematic. But the big one too, that's not a part of this, and hope it will be a part of it in 2.0. I kind of semi-argued for it the last time. We need to do something with our adult learners because we're down about 40% since 2012. So we could all agree, and the part of this bill goes to us looking at how to think about those metrics that need to change over the next many years. Senator Gibbons hadn't talked about that very much, but that's an important piece of this bill, that we're saying that this is where we're at currently to look at where we need to go, but we're not going to just sit there. We're going to spend the next couple, 2 or 3 years looking at those metrics, what we can do to actually impact the overall outcome for those students we are leaving behind, in all honesty, and see how we can make that a part of the next performance funding bill.
Well, I don't know if you heard my comments earlier, but this week I'm on a big poverty meter rise. So I'm going to say more about poverty as we move through this session. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Thanks, Senator Thompson. Any other questions from any other members? Representative Southworth, quickly, thank you.
I have kind of a piggyback question here. One is, and I have not had a chance with the performance funding to hear from all of my universities, but a couple months ago when I was hearing it from them, do we have any main concerns, or is everything pretty good as far as you know it on mine and my district? NKU and KSU are my main two, but then my piggyback question is, I noticed this year's performance funding and asked about this a couple months ago. Murray and Moorhead are at a 0, and I'm wondering, when we're talking about, Clay County and so forth, I get it, Lexington and Louisville are the hubs in this state, but there's a lot of people out on the edges that I always feel like get kind of the last focus, and I'm really more interested in seeing what do we have that everyone else doesn't have, which is schools out in the far edges, and how does this affect them?
Senator Southworth, I'll take that first, and then President Thompson can follow with any thoughts he may have. Specific to NKU and KSU, both were proud to support the final work product that you see in legislative form in front of you. All the university presidents signed it unanimously. I can testify that the process of going through the evaluation was very beneficial, painful, exciting, frightening, and President Thompson and the CPE folks did a great job. The university presidents all rolled up their sleeves, and we really dug in along with Representative Tipton and the staff we have here. And so this has been very, very well vetted. Everyone had the chance to echo their concerns. but we arrived at a place that everyone was in agreement with the final product, largely around the second part of your question, which is that stop loss piece. By moving to effectively a 0% stop loss, we've accepted the fact that we've done all we can do in trying to level the funding. New funding flowing into the formula is going to, again, continue to flow to those universities that aren't benefiting from previous higher full-time equivalent funding. And so when you see the zeros that you mentioned, that's largely the result of, over time, that old shares model was pushing money into institutions that weren't enrolling as many students as the others. That's largely the result of that. I'll let President Thompson speak to it if he has any other thoughts.
Yeah, this bill takes the fiscal cliff away from like the Moorheads and the 6 community colleges that you may be referring to. I like it for that reason, because it gives everybody a base to work on. Now it's based on how well they do on performance. In the past, they had a whole harmless piece, because of the old shares model that Senator Givens talked about, that it was going to be a while before they would get new money. And so the idea that if you don't get new money, if you take money from Moorhead as an example, give it to UK, because UK is performing higher, they may be able to set up a better, what I call a student service base to help their students be successful. If Moorhead has no new money, that may be tougher. This bill takes that off the table. And let me tell you, we had so many discussions around what wasn't on the table, which was good performance, that we forgot to actually talk about what was good. And so now we can talk about performance from that baseline forward. That's the other reason why I like this bill.
We do have a motion on the bill from Senator Wilson. Do we have a second? We have a second from Senator West. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye as the roll's called.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Carr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I'm going to vote aye. I have obviously heard from several different universities, different little concerns, but I think the overall goal here is to help this work group continue their every 3-year report, and hopefully we'll keep getting more of these, and every 3 years we'll look at it again and do something that works for everyone.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
I'm going to vote aye, and I just want to thank Senator Givens for bringing this bill. I think this, I agree with everything that Dr. Thompson said. This is definitely a step in the right direction for our higher education communities, and we need to give more attention to higher education communities. So I'm going to vote aye.
Senator West.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Givens. I just want to say thank you for being willing to change the change. You know, in 2017, I think, was performance-based funding, and it's very, very complicated. And I represent Moorhead, and there were some negative impacts there. But ultimately, we knew we would be here. You know, it's such a complicated thing. We knew we would have to make adjustments. And I appreciate you being willing to carry the ball and make those adjustments. And I'm sure maybe we'll have some adjustments going forward, but I appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Senator Wilson. Aye. Chairman Wise.
Aye. By 9-0 vote, the motion and bill does pass. We do have a title amendment. If I can get a voice vote on that, is there a motion to accept the title amendment? Motion made by Senator Wilson. There was a second from Senator West. All those in favor of accepting the title amendment, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Senator Givens, thank you for your work on this.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thompson, too. Next item on the agenda is Senate Bill 127, an act relating to student health and safety. I am the bill sponsor. I'll just be staying in my place here for the bill. Also joining me online is Shannon Baker with the American Lung Association of Kentucky and Charmaine Anderson, the Director of Advocacy of Allergy and Asthma Network. They are both remote on this. I'm going to go ahead and briefly give a description of the bill. Senate Bill 127 deals with bronchodilator rescue inhalers. The bill simply would change the definition of medications to include a bronchodilator rescue inhaler. It also encourages schools to keep a bronchodilator rescue inhaler in at least 2 locations. 3, it requires that each school have policies and procedures in place when keeping a bronchodilator rescue inhaler on hand. And lastly, the bill specifies that a bronchodilator rescue inhaler can be prescribed to, dispensed to, filled by, and possessed by an authorized entity or certified individual, and allows immunity from civil liability for personal injury for administration and storage of the inhalers. Shannon, I'm going to go to you first. Is there anything you would like to contribute in support of the bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm happy to have the opportunity to provide comments on Senate Bill 127. The American Lung Association supports this bill as it allows schools in Kentucky to provide more immediate access to medications for students with asthma. Asthma, as you know, can be a deadly disease if flare-ups are not treated immediately, so the bill has the potential to save lives and keep our students safe in schools in Kentucky. The Lung Association is the leading organization working to save lives by improving lung health and preventing lung disease through research, education, and advocacy. And our work is focused on 4 strategic imperatives: to defeat lung cancer, to improve the air we breathe, to reduce the burden of lung disease on individuals and their families, and to eliminate tobacco use and tobacco-related diseases. Asthma impacts millions of lives and has a tremendous impact on our nation's healthcare system and economy. In the U.S., close to 25 million Americans, including 6.1 million children, have asthma. And here in Kentucky, 57,000 children have asthma diagnoses. It's also responsible for more than $50 billion annually in healthcare costs and causes 7.9 million missed school days and 10.1 million missed days of work nationwide. Because asthma attacks can occur at any time and often without any warning, children with asthma and children who are experiencing respiratory distress should always have access to medication that can quickly reverse the blockages in their lungs. This life-saving medication, called a short-acting bronchodilator, is easy to administer, inexpensive, and very safe. Properly administered in a school setting with the use of disposable spacers for each student, there is little to no danger of spreading any disease. Unfortunately, when children do not have access to asthma medication, which can occur for a variety of reasons, such as forgetting it, not being able to afford it, or not having yet been diagnosed, schools just have few options. A parent may not be immediately accessible or close enough to respond promptly, and even if they can, there's a delay during which the asthma attack often gets worse, and in such cases, the school has to call 911. Doing so is likely to lead to an ambulance transport costing $500 or more, and an emergency department visit costing thousands more. Such events also take the children out of the classroom for days at a time, further impeding their learning. These adverse events are largely avoidable with a simple, low-cost solution: stock medication or inhalers. Schools can purchase or secure donations of single inhalers containing a short-acting bronchodilator along with inexpensive disposable spacers that can be used for anyone who experiences the sudden onset of coughs, shortness of breath, or chest tightness. These things signal an asthma attack. It's critical, as outlined in the proposed legislation, that school staff other than school nurses are also trained in the signs and symptoms of asthma when it's appropriate to administer the rescue medication. So in Kentucky, there's not a school nurse present in every school setting, so it's imperative that we train other staff to assess, access, and administer the required medication that would potentially save a student's life. SB 127 also provides the important liability protections for the prescriber, the school, and the person who administers the medication in good faith. As I mentioned, the medication used for treatment of asthma attacks is safe and it's effective. As part of a research project in Sunnyside Unified School District in Tucson, Arizona, that evaluated the stock inhaler project, researchers found that school nurses were afraid that giving the medication could potentially expose them to liability. So it's imperative that the liability protections as outlined in the bill remain intact. SB 127 is so important as it allows schools to maintain a stock supply of asthma medication for student use when medication is otherwise unavailable. It represents a simple and low cost, or no cost if donated, solution to a problem that could save both lives and money. In total, 14 states have already passed legislation or have administrative guidelines in place allowing schools to stock asthma medications. Key provisions that should always be addressed in legislation and which are addressed in SB 127 to ensure optimal effectiveness include ensuring that school staff, other than school health officials, are required to be properly trained in the use and administration of the stock asthma medication, and making certain that all school staff, officials, and healthcare providers involved in administration or prescribing of stock asthma medication receive liability protection, except in cases of willful or gross negligence. Likewise, it's critical that the legislation applies to both students who have been diagnosed with asthma and students suffering from respiratory distress that may not yet have been diagnosed, as some kids with asthma aren't diagnosed until after their first attack. So on behalf of the American Lung Association in Kentucky, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for the opportunity to talk with you today and for your interest in protecting the health and well-being of Kentucky students. The Lung
Thank you, Ms.
Association
Baker.
supports the bill and encourages swift action.
Thank you so much. We do have a letter of support, also in members' folders from the Allergy and Asthma Network. Are there any questions on the bill? Seeing none, we have a motion from Central West. We have a second. We have a second from Senator Carroll. Chris, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Senator West. Senator Wilson. Chairman Wise.
Aye. The bill does pass by 9-0 vote. Thank you so much, Ms. Baker.
Mr. Chair, this seems, as I was reading this bill, it seems to be the perfect bill to go on consent.
Can I entertain that motion? Senator Givens, are we comfortable with consent? We have a motion by Senator Thomas for consent. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor of placing the bill on consent, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. The next bill on our agenda is Senate Bill 129. It's an act relating to education. Chuck Truesdale is on the call. Chuck, if you could, in an explanation of this, if we could use your guidance and expertise from the department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck Truesdale, Director of Government Relations for the Department of Education. Senate Bill 129 is a very simple bill. It's maybe a long bill, but it's a simple bill. It simply transfers the technical advisory panel, the responsibility for that panel that the state uses and consults with for assessment and accountability, from LRC to the Department of Education. The statutes were originally created in '98 as part of a larger package that created the EARS subcommittee within LRC. That's the Education Assessment and Accountability Review Subcommittee. And as time has gone on, KDE has actually utilized NTAPA, which is the National Technical Advisory Panel on Assessment and Accountability, quite often more than LRC has for that purpose. But it continues to be housed at LRC, and so KDE needs LRC approval before that panel can provide its services. And we use it 2 or 3 times a year for sort of the things you might expect, assessment design, accountability design, that sort of thing. The bill has KDE support, and as I understand it, it is also supported by the LRC director. So that's short and sweet. Any questions? Happy to entertain them.
Perfect, Chuck. We have a motion by Senator West. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Carroll. Chris, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
Please proceed.
I think out of protest of you leaving LRC, I should vote no. But in light of the fact that I just can't do it to your first bill, but I can haze you a little through my explanation of my yes vote, I'm going to let the staff try to figure out if I voted yes or no, because a good LRC staffer could determine the way I'm leaning and mark it on the page.
Thanks, Senator Givens.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Senator Wilson. Chairman Wise.
Aye, the bill passes by 9-0 vote. Do we also have a motion for consent? Motion made by Senator West, second by Senator Givens. All those in favor of placing 129 on consent calendar, please do so by saying aye. Motion carries. The last bill for today, Senate Bill 168. It's an act relating to reorganization. I am the sponsor of that, but this is also a KDE bill. Chuck, if you would, proceed on 168.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the risk of engaging a no vote from Senator Givens and keeping it off consent, I'll try to be brief. This bill just codifies 2 executive orders related to the Department of Education and the Education Professional Standards Board. It's a very long bill, but again, it's a very simple bill. Most of the KDE language is actually just cleanup language that corrects various bills from the past that reorganized the department. The EPSB portion codifies EPSB as a board separate from the State Board of Education, but whose staff work for the Department of Education. It's been this way for about 4 or 5 years now through various reorgs. The current structure works very well. We have an associate commissioner who oversees the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness. It's worked very well. We expect that to continue. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Members, any questions? Senator Southworth, thank you.
I just wanted to get a clarification. So on page 34, it talks about the commissioner heading it up, and then the page 45 mentioned the pension. They were in the teachers. Now, are they still in teachers? Are they in KRS, or how does that? I'm sorry, it's 2 different issues, but in interest of time, I'm trying to throw them together.
Yes, ma'am. When EPSB was an independent agency within the Education Workforce Development Cabinet, it had an executive director who served as the executive secretary of the board. And so that responsibility has been transferred to the Commissioner of Education. It also gives him, obviously, the ability to designate staff to accomplish those ends for EPSB, and he has done that through the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness with the Associate Commissioner, who, if any of you have met Rob Akers, he fills that role right now. The second question regarding the teachers' retirement system, this is just sort of transition language when those, because in the TRS statutes, it very clearly defines who is a member of the teachers' retirement system. And so the ones who were in TRS at EPSB when they came over continue to be in teacher retirement system because they wouldn't be able to refer to the staff of EPSB in that statute anymore. Depending on their qualifications, just like other staff at the Department of Education, some are in the teachers retirement system and others are in the Kentucky employee retirement system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Seeing no further questions, do we have a motion on Senate Bill 168? Motion by Senator Wilson, a second. Second by Senator West. Chris, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Senator Wilson. Chairman Wise.
Aye. By 9-0 vote, the bill does pass. Chuck, thank you for your work on this. We look forward to working with you in your continued role.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Also, may I have a motion for consent for 168? We have a motion by Senator West and a second by Senator Carroll. All those in favor of placing 168 on consent, do so by saying aye. All those opposed? Perfect. Thank you all so much. Meeting is adjourned.
We just leaving them here? Yep. So where are we now?
Think about those NAEP scores, if they started at 15.
You know all the intricacies. I used to tell teachers, oh my lord, you all don't even know the answer. Hey, y'all be careful this weekend. Uh-huh.